All right, hey everyone out there in Banjo land, Mike Heading here, coming to you today with a free banjo lesson. I want to talk about a little easy trick you can use to essentially double the amount of licks that you know. We're just going to use a little bit of music theory to slightly modify either the ending of the lick or the beginning, and then we can use that lick in a new situation. So that's what we're going to talk about for this lesson. I've been working with a bunch of students that have been struggling to memorize licks, or again, they're just getting frustrated that they don't know enough licks. So this can be a really easy trick, like I said, to essentially double the amount of licks you know. Let's jump into this lesson. So real quick, let's just go over a little bit of the music theory, because I think it's important to understand the concept of why it works. I think that'll help you understand it, and then we'll go over a bunch of examples of how to apply this concept. Okay, so we're going to use a concept called the relative major and the relative minor. So if we can take our major licks and find the relative minor, we can slightly modify the lick and make it work for that minor key. So we can essentially take major licks we know, convert them into minor licks that we can use, and we can do it vice versa. We can take a minor lick and we can slightly modify to make it a major lick. So this works really well for major and minor pentatonic licks, not as well for dominant 7 licks, but I'll show you how to apply that at the end if you want to do some dominant bluesy 7th licks as well. All right, let's jump into the theory. Here we go. So the basic concept is we have 3 notes that make up our chord. Let's look at our open G chord. So we have 3 notes that make up that chord: G, B, and D. So they're called the 1, 3, and 5 of the scale. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's our chord. So our chord notes are the 1, 3, 5. And then we have 6, major 7, and then back either to the 5th fret for the root or the open if you're in tune, hopefully, right? So that's our major scale. Okay, so we're taking the 1, 3, and 5 notes of that scale, in this case G major scale. The 1, 3, and 5 notes, if we play those at the same time, it's going to sound a G major chord, okay? It'll sound a G major chord, or strumming them, right? The rest of our notes on the open are just another D and another G. So we're just using a combination of those 3 notes to make our major chord, okay? So then if we take 2 of those notes, the G and the B, and if we modify the 5th note, raise it a whole step up to the 6th note, that's our relative minor. So if we play those 3 notes, now we have an E minor chord. You may have heard that G is, and the relative minor is E minor, right? Think of a song like Foggy Mountain Breakdown, uses that relative minor. So again, you can see all we have to do is change that 1 note, and now we sound a minor chord. And actually that D note will work in E minor as well as like an E minor 7. So basically, the underlying concept that you need to remember is that the relative major and the relative minor share almost all the same notes, 2 out of the 3, okay? So that's the concept we're going to use. How does this apply to licks, okay? So our licks in bluegrass are almost always going to end on the root note, and a lot of times start on the root note. So take example, a basic lick, maybe a basic slide or a basic Scruggs lick. So those 2 licks both start on the 3rd string and end on the 3rd string, right? A lick like this doesn't start on the root note, it starts on we're sliding into that B, the 3rd note, and then we're ending on the root, right? So the majority of the licks, like I said, they're always going to end on the root. If you don't end on the root note, it doesn't really sound complete until you land back on the root, right? So very important, just for, again, understanding licks, it's very important to end on the right note. It's kind of like sliding into home plate. You're safe if you get to that root note at the end. Okay, so how can we apply this to now changing those licks into minor licks? So what we can do is we can, instead of ending on the root, right? If we end now on the sixth minor, the sixth note of the scale, that's our root note of the relative minor. So we have it here, like I said. We also have it here on the second fret of the low string. So, for example, you could take that Scruggs lick and end there, and now it's going to sound like an E minor lick, right? And end there, and now it sounds like an E minor lick, right? So I'm just changing the ending note. I'm not even changing the starting note. If you want to make it even more minor-y, that's probably not a word. If you want to make it even more minor sounding, change the first note as well. So instead of starting on the open third string, start on the root of the minor. So you can hear it sounds even stronger minor if you start and end on the minor note. So again, let's take another lick like that basic slide. So you can do. So ending there makes it a minor lick. What about something like, right? So instead of, try it with a bunch of licks. It's not going to work 100% of the time, but it's going to work a majority of the times. So a couple more basic Scruggs licks. What if we took something like this? You know, like a basic lick like that. Right? Okay, so before we do some more examples, let's just look at a couple ways to find that relative minor if you're not sure. So let's say you want to find it in a different chord quickly. So let's go up to our movable G chord at the 5th fret. So an easy way to do it is you can take your ring finger and move it to the 5th fret of the 2nd string. That'll be the relative minor note. So you just have to figure out what note this is. In this case, it's a G, or here, right? And the relative minor is you just take your 3rd finger and you move it to the 5th, or you just move it down to the 2nd string, whatever fret you're on. So, right? You can do it there. If you move it up, you can do it there, right? You know, wherever you are, you can just move that note, and that's the relative minor. You can hear it. Right? So that's how it is in this shape. The other way you can find it here easily is if you just go down 3 frets from wherever you are. So you have this note as our starting note. You have 1, 2, 3 frets away, wherever you are. So if you're here, you have 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. If you're here, right, that's our root. 1, 2, 3. Okay? The other way is in your D shape. If you're in your D chord here, you take your ring finger again, move it down 1 string to the 3rd string now, wherever you are. In this case, it's the 4th fret. But if you move it up, you know, it's wherever you are, you can move that. So that's how you find that note, right? Okay? So let's take that concept and now apply it. So let's take it, for example, let's take some D licks, right? So maybe you're struggling with some D licks. But then if I said, okay, find some relative minor licks, in this case, it's going to be that note there, which is B. So in this case, it's B minor. So if I asked you if you knew any B minor licks, you might say you don't. But again, let's take that concept of now taking a D lick and changing the first or last note and making it a B minor lick. So let's take a basic Scruggs lick like this. Right? It would end there or end there, right? Or, so let's take that. So we're going to go like start with that note. Or you can hear how it goes back to major. Hear that? So that, you can do the same thing with C, right? C or A minor. You can even slide up like a lick like this. So you're going to end there, right? If you want to make it minor, or so let's go the other way and take a minor lick and make it major. So let's say we have a lick like this, like an A minor pentatonic, something like, like working out of this shape, that shape there. Or, right? So now we can make those, so we could go and end there, and that's our C, right? Or start on the C, like there, right? So now we can take our A, we can end there, like that. So we could go, make it minor, right? So up here, same thing, if we have a, and there, that's our minor, right? So you can really apply this concept to any style of lick in a major or minor pentatonic sense, okay? So lastly, let's talk real quick about where it won't work as well. And this gets a little bit more into the theory, but that concept won't work as well for like a G7 lick that has the major third and then the flat 7, right? Or like if you wanted to do a bluesy song in E, if you want that major third sound, sometimes you can play minor pentatonic over that stuff, but if you want the major third sound, that relative minor won't have that major third in it. So I won't go too deep into the theory, but basically there's another chord you can use as the relative minor for a dominant 7th chord. So in this case, a G7, right? If we do G major, right, the relative minor is E minor. But if we do G7, we have to account for that F note. So in this case, the chord is going to be B minor flat 5. And sometimes you'll put the 7, so you have B minor 7 flat 5. So we won't go too into that. Maybe I'll do a future lesson on that, but if you're doing what would be called dominant 7th licks, you just have to know that there's a different relative minor. So I won't get too much into that because I don't want to confuse you, but just know if the lick doesn't sound quite right, then you might need to minor that third, right? So make it a G minor pentatonic lick, and then it'll work. Or make it, major, and then that'll work for the E minor, right? So again, it's just good practice. It's a way to expand your knowledge, and like for any lick, you just have to try it and see if it fits into that situation. All right, hopefully that helps you out. Good luck and keep picking.